First time since the January 2007 torture slayings of Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom, we heard a sound we have not heard in any of 3 courtrooms now in which suspects have been tried. Today, we heard an audible gasp from the family in defiance of the judge's order to show no reaction, and we heard for the first time a jury say death was punishment.
With regard to the count charging Mr. Davidson with the first-degree felony murder of Hugh Christopher Newsom, that is counts 1, 2, 5, 6, 10, 13, and 14, what is the decision of the jury as to what the punishment should be with regard to those counts?
The punishment is death.
A Knox County jury today imposed a death sentence on convicted ringleader Lamarcus Davidson in the killings of Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom. They pronounced death on felony murder and first-degree murder for Chris's death, and also death as punishment for the first-degree murder and felony murder of Channon Christian. The jury concluded that the killings were especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel, involved torture, were committed knowingly, that there was mutilation of Chris's body via the fire that was set after his death. They also found that Davidson had a substantial role in this crime spree that claimed this couple's life. It was welcome news for the family. They felt cheated of justice when Davidson's brother, Latavis Cobbins, received a sentence of life without parole after his trial in August. Of course, they've always felt cheated that Eric Boyd, who is a suspect but not charged, has yet to be charged in these murders. And they know that there's still some battles ahead with suspect George Thomas. There's no DNA to link him to these killings or the rapes. And also there's some appeal issues with suspect Vanessa Coleman.
We had heard a report on TV about a body being found that was badly burned on the railroad tracks, but never did we ever connect the two.
We were 2 blocks from where she was. If they'd have just knocked on the door, walked the streets, we don't know if we could have saved her life, but she wouldn't have sat there for 2 days in a trash can.
Knew Chris was his friend, and he had a smile that everybody just loved.
Chris was an excellent baseball player. A good boy, good kid, worked hard, had a lot of skills. Could have went on and played further if he'd have chose to.
She was a typical girl. I mean, she wasn't perfect. Nobody's perfect, but she was never gave us any trouble, always did well in school. She was beautiful, but what made her even more beautiful was the fact that she was not stuck on herself.
Channon Christian was a 21-year-old student at the University of Tennessee. Chris Newsom was a 23-year-old trim carpenter. Both were still living at home and had just begun to date in November of 2006. One Saturday evening, they planned to go to a birthday party for a friend, but instead they decided to stay at Shannon's best friend's apartment to watch a movie.
12:35, the phone rang that night, and he spoke to her on the phone. She called to check in to let us know that she was coming home rather than staying at Kara's that night. And I sat up, and she never came home.
We had not seen him since Saturday night, which that's not unusual. He was 23 years old, and he kind of came and went, you know, with not a whole lot of restrictions at that age. And the way we discovered he was missing was Shannon's mother, Dina, called and said that Channon didn't show up for work.
In the early morning hours of January 7, 2007, Chris Newsom and Channon Christian were carjacked and abducted from the Washington Ridge apartments. They were held captive in a house on Chipman Street near the Waste Connections building. Both were brutally raped and beaten. Chris was led to the railroad tracks near the house, where he was shot 3 times, twice in the back and once to the head execution style. Then his body was set on fire. On Monday, a body found on the railroad tracks was identified as Chris by a homicide detective who had known him through his son.
Detective Snodderly says it's Chris. And we asked, well, how do you know? And he said, I recognized him by his eyes. Everything fell apart at that moment.
All of his friends walked in. There must have been 15 or 20 of them come in all at the same time. And that just gave me such an eerie feeling. So I thought, why isn't Chris with them? And it really put chills through me. I thought, here's all his friends and he's not here. And that was one of the hardest moments.
I got a phone call and it said, man, there's something going on up here at this house by the trash place. And then I got another call that said that they thought that they had found her because they were bringing in, there was an ambulance that had just gotten there.
Channon Christian was kept alive inside the house for several hours as her captors repeatedly raped and tortured her. A chemical substance was poured down her throat and on her body in an attempt to destroy DNA evidence. She was then bound, put inside 5 trash bags, and then shoved inside a trash can where she was left to suffocate. She died with her eyes open.